Hello, welcome to my channel. Well, a little update before a story. My canopy, 10 by 15 foot blue canopy that I set up in the front of the garage is now fully functional. It has all my projects in there. The lumber that was on my garage floor is in there, as as well as a workspace for me that I don't have to keep taking in and out of the garage. And since I put my projects into the garage, you see there's no monkey behind me. Well, the monkey has a permanent spot now. It's now above the garage door on a nail. So it'll stay there for a while. So my story for the day is a continuing story that I started the other day about the summers after my freshman and sophomore year in high school. My dad and my grandfather and I commercial fished for salmon. I went out almost every day, weather permitting, 6 days a week. And it's funny, our boat wasn't big enough to stay out overnight. It was only 22 feet long. And so every day we went out, came back in, right past the Coast Guard station. And I fell in love with their rescue boat of the 70s anyway, the 44-foot self-righting motor lifeboat. In the bottom of that boat is a heavy weight, and should it roll over in heavy surf, it's guaranteed to right itself within 45 seconds. So whenever that boat would go out to sea, everyone on the boat would have to snap in, because if the boat rolls over and they're not snapped in, they won't be there when it comes back up. Of course, when it rolls over like that, all the electronics is gone, and so they don't do it on purpose with all electronics on it anyway. Anyway, January of my senior year in high school, I went down to the Coast Guard recruiting station in Portland, and I decided to sign up. Delayed enlisted, it was calling. I didn't have to go to boot camp until September of that year. And I finished school, had a nice summer, went to boot camp. Well, in boot camp, I found out that the Coast Guard has big boats. I didn't know that because I'd never seen them before. And I never made it to a small boat, with the exception of one of the small boats that were on the Coast Guard cutter I was on. But I ended up spending, when they sent me to Boston. And so I spending a year and a half on a big Coast Guard cutter, had the capabilities of being out at sea for 90 days. For the most part, we were the game wardens of the sea. We patrolled the 200-mile fishing limit. We would board boats, Russian boats, Chinese, Japanese, all sorts of boats, look at their licenses and make sure they only had those fish on board. And it was work. And then after I got off the Coast Guard cutter, I spent 2 years on base security. And then my last year in the Coast Guard, I spent on a district mailroom. Monday through Friday, no nights, no weekends. Oh, anyway, I'm ahead of myself. Go back to fishing. And so a couple things that I saw fishing off the Oregon coast. I saw this fish called a mola mola. Of course, I didn't know what it was at the time. In fact, it looked like it was this giant fish that something bigger had bitten it in half. It had looked like a dorsal fin and a fin underneath it. And it was just this big fish. So when I got back to where I could look it up at the library, turns out it's mola mola, or a sunfish. that's just the way it's shaped. And it gets up to 1,500 pounds. It's a big fish. And one day we were sitting in fog. The nice thing about sitting in fog is there's not much swell, and so the boat doesn't rock much, and it's eerily quiet. Of course, you can't see anything. The fog was really thick. You couldn't see 10 feet in front of the boat. Luckily, my dad had electronics on, so well, no boat was going to run into us, but I heard a splash out in the front of the boat. And I looked. Of course, I couldn't see anything. It was further than 10 feet. And then I saw it again. I saw it for the first time. I see this big black dorsal fin coming out of the water. Turns out it was a killer whale, an orca. 8 feet from the front of the boat. And it scared me so much, I wanted to climb out the back of the boat, which really wouldn't do me much good. But, that was that excitement of being out at sea. I remember one time some line that somebody jettisoned off their boat got caught up in our prop. And so Dad lifted the engine with the props up, and he held on to me while I had my face about 6 inches from the sea level, trying to cut off all this line off of our props so we could go someplace. Man, I saw I saw Jaws too many times, and I was just frightened of a shark coming up and biting my hand off. But it didn't happen, and we took off. So, let's see, lots and lots of other fishing stories. I mean, our favorite meal was Ritz crackers and cheddar cheese and budding meats, those little processed packages of meats. Made it easy. You didn't have to cut anything up, just open the package. So anyway, my arm's getting tired of holding the camera up, so I think I'm going to call it a day for now. And thanks for watching, and talk to you later. Bye.